I watched that Max Griffin fight. I watched that Max Griffin and Mike Perry fight. And first I noticed, Mike Perry, 6 years younger than Max Payne Griffin. And you got to think that's kind of, you don't think a lot of times about age being a huge factor, but that means that Max Griffin has had, that's 365, 6 years? That's 2,000 more days of training that Max Griffin has had. And I know there's that, there's that other side of the coin where if somebody gets too old, they start to deteriorate. But I think you're still on that anteriorate. You're still heading uphill. So he's had 2,000 more days to train, to eat, to try out different vitamins, to do whatever, he's had 2,000 more days. But, this was an exciting fight. I think people were excited. This is the fourth fight I ever watched, maybe, or fifth fight. But, they try to pull each other's pants down at the body ceremony. Because in the beginning, if you're new to MMA kickboxing, there is a body ceremony where they meet up and look at each other's bodies and do the scale and everything. And Mike Perry tried to pull down the other man's pants. And I thought it was funny. I watched it. I just thought it was funny. Because it is nice to see something a little bit out of the norm in this thing, I mean, it's, it's like Rome. It's like these are our gladiators. And sometimes one of your gladiators is going to have more of a sense of humor than the other. And also these men respect each other. It just seemed like a funny thing to me. Some people, say different things about it. But I like the tattoos. They had some good tattoos. Both the men had some, make a squid jealous, a lot of hot ink out there. You got your boy Perry has that cross and goes into some tribal work on his arms. It says God's gift over his navel. And I don't know if that means he won, if he won a belly button contest or if he's talking about his genitalia or what. But then the other man, Mr. Max Griffin, he has only God can judge me up here on his clavicle. He's got that clavicle stamp, that clamp stamp. And he, and I guess, he only wants God to judge him, and that's what he thinks. But it ended up being actually that the fight went to decision. So, the judges actually judged him and judged everybody. But I thought it was a good fight, man. I mean, I'll say this. Mike Perry scares me, bro, because he has that violent white dude in him. Mike Perry has that violent white dude. Everybody knows this guy. He's like, you ever been over to somebody's house? If you grew up in a poor neighborhood or something, you've been over to somebody's house where they have a wild dog. They got a pit bull. And when you get to the gate, you say, do you put him up? Put him up. And they'll say, oh, he's up. He's up. No, he ain't up. Put him up. And that's that pit bull dog. If somebody owns a pit bull dog, you make them put him up before you come in the front gate. And that's Mike Perry. He's that pit bull dog. You just don't know what he's going to do. He's that wild. He's just, he's aggressive and he's energetic and you just don't know what he's going to do. But the fight was good, man. Max Griffin looked taller to me. And I don't know if it was some of the camera angles they were using, but Max Griffin probably looked, 4 inches taller to me. And he looked longer. He got longer arms and legs. So I don't know who did the height. Maybe they used different rulers for the different heights. But it seemed like Max Payne Griffin had longer extremities. And it seemed like right out of the gate, you got Mike Perry comes in with a high kick. Highest kick I saw him do the whole time. And if Max Griffin would have had a hat on, a top hat, he would have kicked it right off his head. But he just missed him, and he came in with that high kick out of the gate. And then Griffin, like 30 seconds into the fight, Griffin hits Payne, and you can see he get that blood in him. He get that blood on his head. And that body lava starts to flow out a little, and I respect that, Perry didn't touch it. Some guy, if you touch that cut, then you start to spread the blood around and you're just adding to, you're adding to that fiasco. He didn't touch it. He just let it flow, just let it drip, drip, drop right out of his brain cranium. And, I respected that. And he kept going. I mean, he didn't even... And I don't know if Perry noticed it or not. He was in such a zone. I mean, when you're watching Mike Perry fight, man, it's almost like he's fighting in a hallway, if that makes any sense. It's like he's just in this one zone Where Max Griffin, it's a little bit more like, you know, like the lens, like he's fighting with more of a panoramic lens, like he's, you know, a little bit wider, you know, like he's kind of seeing everything, whereas Perry is just so focused in. And at the end of the first round, they go to the mat, and this is when I was like, oh man, Perry, at the very end of the first round, Perry is on top of Griffin, and I thought, if this thing goes 20 seconds more, it could be a wrap. It could be a wrap. I was like, it could be a wrap. Because Perry there's just so much propensity for violence in him. You just don't know what's going to happen. At any second, you didn't know what was going to happen with Perry. You know, it's almost like a pack of matches. You ever had a pack of matches in your backpack? And you see them in there and you're like, oh, I should take these out because who knows? I'll put my backpack down or set it somewhere, or I checked luggage or something. It could start a fucking fire at any moment. That's Mike Perry. Mike Perry is he's a pack of matches in a check bag. You're like, I don't know if I should leave this in here because at any moment it could start a fire. He's just at any moment, he should almost have a tattoo on the back that just says flammable, peligroso, you know, just anything could happen with him. But his stance, everything, you know, he don't have that long reach in his legs. You know, he got them little, you know, he kicks kind of like it's almost like a guy in a wheelchair who likes to kick people. You know, he can only kick so far because he have that, you know, them tiny kicks. And I'm not saying the guy wouldn't kick the fuck out of me. This dude could kick my head off of my neck and probably get a hole in one from 170 yards. But he got them, you know, wheelchair kicks. And then you got fucking Griffin out there. And this dude he got ankles. How many ankles does Griffin have? Because his legs, he got that, it's like he's got ankles in his skin. And he's got 360-degree ankles. He don't even have knees. It just seemed like he had big ankles in the middle of his legs. He just had that much fluidity. You know, he's just that fluid. And then when round two started, you got Perry looks a little bit more. He looked a little winded, I thought. You know, the adrenaline kind of boils off there after that first round. And in the beginning of the second round, I feel like you can see kind of what's starting to go on out here. You know, there's not that that crazy tension. Almost the fight even looks a little different. You know, it just looks a little bit, it almost looks like there's some sweat on the lens of the camera. There's just, you know, it's just a little bit more, things have kind of settled in a little bit more. And Perry has his coaches in his corner, they're yelling for him. And it's his, you know, one of his he's got his ladies, his training partner, and she's ride or die. I don't know if you've seen their YouTube channel. I'll put a link to it at the bottom of mine in this episode. But, you know, this is ride or die lady. They train together. She could whoop my ass. This lady could whoop some ass. You know, I feel bad for their kids. If they ever have children and the children misbehave, somebody getting their ass whooped. But you got the ladies and the coaches over there, and they're yelling at Perry to get him against the cage, get him against the cage. But Griffin, he's just so poised throughout that you can see his plan. Like he has a plan the whole time. And you can't get him against Griffin's like diarrhea. You know, and I don't mean that. He just, you know, you don't know where he is. You can see, you know, he's kind of bubbles up here, he bubbles up there, and he's here, he's there, and then bam, he's the shit. And he'll fucking knock you out. And that's kind of how it seemed. You couldn't really contain him, and then bam, he's the shit. And he'll knock you out. And at the middle of the second round, I start to see him get a little bit winded. They're both starting to seem a little bit winded. And Perry's bleeding. Bleeding, dude. I'm talking second day flow. Perry is it's heavy. If I had this, I'd already be at the hospital. If I had even half of what is coming out of his head, a little bit, I'd be at the hospital. So I commend him. You know, the guy's a man. I would be at the hospital. You know, I'd already have probably filled out a will. I'd have tried to get my family members to donate blood. That's how I can't handle that. And then Griffin brings him down with a combo. And I thought that this could be the end of it. But the bell rings, and then and that's the end of the second round for these guys. And when the bell rings, you have to go do your own thing for like a minute. And I don't know why they do that really, but they just, I guess they want you to think about what's just occurred. And maybe if you have some issues or some feelings you want to get rid of or shed some, feelings or say something to a friend or text a friend, then you can do that. But then they come back out for the third round. And you start to feel like Griffin has this one in the bag. You start to feel like Griffin has this one in the bag at the start of the third round. They're both winded. But then out of nowhere, Perry hits him with that snow glober. And that snow glober, that's when somebody hits you and suddenly, the weather changes and you don't know what season it is for a second. He just hit him with that right, and suddenly it was a little bit of, it was a 30% chance of freaking, of cold dandruff, and it might have been Christmas Eve for Max Griffin. You don't know, for just you're like, whoa. But it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that heavy. It was just a Halloween hit. It was just a little bit of rain and some Halloween, but he still hit him with that snow glober. And that's when, that's Mike Perry. He's just those matches. You just don't know when he's going to strike or how quick it's going to end. And at this point, as the second half of this third round goes on, I'm like, damn, this thing is a war. This thing is a war. Perry climbs up him. He climbed up to the second story of Max Griffin. He tried to come in through the roof. He trying to come in through the roof of that man. Because Perry's plan, you could see, it's just to win. And look, I don't know anything about fucking fights, but I know how to watch shit and talk about what I see. And Perry, it just seemed like his plan, win the fight. That's the whole plan. Whereas it seemed like Griffin, he has more other little plans. Move this way, do the stanky leg, he had a lot of different little plans put in there. Wear him down, do this, do that. Whereas Griffin is just like, man, dude, I was nervous the whole fight. And that's what Perry does, man. He just, for some reason, for me personally watching it, he makes me nervous. But I thought at any moment in that last minute, I thought Perry could have won it, because Perry has this thing. He'll do anything to win. He'll do anything to win. That's just who he is. He will do anything to win, and there's nothing you can do about it. And at the very end, you could start to see where it was really getting even. And I think if that fight would have gone another 45 seconds, I wouldn't have been surprised if Mike Perry rips off one of his own arms and just beats Max Griffin to death with it. That's what I would not have been surprised. Because it was just, I got to win this fight. And, I love the fact that his hometown was on, his home state of Florida. There was a lot of respect there in the audience for him. And that's Platinum Mike Perry. And he's going to be back. He's going to be back. I would watch him fight a million more times. I think, I'm not going to tell him what to do because I don't even know anything. I was in 2 fights when I was young, and both times I pretty much got my ass beat, I think. One time I think I might have got some licks in, or at least, kind of caught this dude hard in the neck one time right there on that sugar shelf right there on that lion's lick. But anyhow, man, I'd watch these dudes fight again in a heartbeat. Great fight. Great fight. Great fight.